Cayin N6 Mark III. I have it, Ben have it. What's the difference? It's the motherboard here. Ben, what do you have in your hand?
Mine is the Cirrus Logic C201.
Which is released first, right?
Yeah.
And mine is the later version, which I received purely running on E203, which is ESS Sabre ES9039, 2 DAC inside. And the one that Ben holding is the version which has 8 or octa-core kind of configuration with the DAC itself.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the main difference between these two, because if you look at the build, the construction and everything, even the weight, which is at around 350 gram, I would say that considerably lighter if you consider that we have a humongous DAP like this DX340 here, half a kilo, and this is only 350 gram. When you use this with the 9000 mAh battery, what kind of hours did you get running on, let's say, tidal?
Roughly around 12-ish hours.
12 hours.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive, man.
Yep. Yeah.
Because running on this one, which is E203, and you have to remember it runs on class A amplifier most of the time, and even hyper mode, I only get at around 9 hours at best, and that is doing local audio playback. If I do streaming, it is like less, in 8 hours, and if I do hyper mode, it is even lesser, at around probably at best close to 8 hours, probably 7 hours. So just remember this thing here, Cirrus Logic base C201 is much more efficient than this. But then again, in return, you get some differences. So now let's talk about the differences. So,
Yeah.
Ben, you have been comparing this side by side, just like me earlier, okay?
Yep.
And spending quite a bit of time. Which IEM that you used to try just now?
I use the Not Brand Pursuer, the one that I just previously reviewed. I love that because that gives you a lot of it soundstages like a monster, and it's got very good extension in treble and the bass.
And it's pretty much transparent as well, right?
Yeah. The C201 actually has a bit more focus on the mid bass.
Mid bass.
Yeah, so it's more mid bass versus, and it also has a bit more extension. Not so much extension. Sorry, the treble has more airiness than the E203.
I am hearing the same thing. This does sound like Cirrus Logic CS43198, which I am so very familiar with. I am talking about iBasso DX260.
Yeah.
The moment I plug in this C01 into my N6 Mark III here, I told Ben, hey, you know what? I recognize this sound. This sounds pretty much very similar to iBasso DX260, which also runs on octa-core CS43198. And the main difference, okay, this does sound a bit more exciting, a bit more boosted, a bit more dynamic, where the iBasso DX260 running on this octa-core, similar kind of configuration, is flatter sounding. So what I'm trying to say here is pretty much like, it is more like a reference flat neutral sound, where this is a bit more immersive, engaging sounds.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
It's a bit more, yeah, correct.
Okay.
A bit more fun.
203 here. Things really change.
Yep.
Especially when we switch to hyper mode, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one that unlocks the maximum power at 900 milliwatt of power, and suddenly everything sounded like boosted up. That's the best way I would describe it. The dynamic like
Turbo
expand like a turbo mode,
Turbo
right?
mode, yeah.
It's like everything sounded so lively, engaging, rich, and very vibrant. Depending on your taste and preference, I would even say that if you're looking for something which is like reference, that is not exactly reference sound, because there's a bit of, I would say, linear coloration throughout the entire dynamic range, from the lower frequency, mid-range, all the way to the upper frequency. Everything just sound linearly boosted. How would you describe the lower frequency of this?
It's fuller. It's fuller than the C201. It sounds better. It actually sounds more organic than
organic.
Yeah, it sounds
the
more
timbre.
organic than this one. Yes, so you get more weight to the notes. You get more weight to the vocals, and the sub bass. The sub bass is better than this, but the mid bass isn't as punchy as the Cirrus Logic.
This one offer a bit more of lower frequency extension.
Yeah.
That you will hear the sub bass a bit more.
Yeah.
And this one is a bit more pronounced with the mid bass, but then the sub bass is not as extended as E203. So that's one of the main difference. And the upper frequency, I think you did mention earlier, it's a bit more, let's say, sparkly, airy with this C201, and I would even describe this one a bit more dampened.
Yes.
Not to say that it is less with the micro detail of the upper frequency, but it is a bit more, let's say, not as pronounced, meaning that if you are sensitive to treble, then this is a perfect solution because it does sound smoother. That EXS Saber sounded more natural, more organic than the Cyrus Logic, which is mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
This C201 is capable of 700 milliwatt of power from the 4.4 mm balance in high gain. If you enable hyper mode on this E203, then you're gonna get 900 milliwatt of power maximum. If you want to run something so demanding like this, HiFiMan Arya Unveiled here, or even Sennheiser HD 600 beside Ben here, then I would just simply say that you should go for E203 because that 200 milliwatt power of difference will be audible. You can actually hear it. In contrast, it is pretty much almost similar to this Ibasso DX340 in many ways when it comes to power because both of them will drive those headphones effortlessly. But then again, I will still have to give an advantage on this Ibasso DX340 because this thing at basic battery mode was already capable of delivering at around 1250 milliwatt power, a bit more than this N6 Mark III with E203. How about Soundstage, Ben? How would you describe the, let's say, the staging of the sound itself? The soundstage, the size, the width, the height and everything between these two?
I think they sound pretty similar. I couldn't really tell if there was any differences. It'd be very small. Wide and tall and deep, they all sound pretty similar, both of them. None of them can compare with the DX340.
Unfortunately, we have to admit again, especially if you enable power on this high gain and then that extra crazy 2000 milliwatt of power and you are running headphones like this, you can literally feel the openness of the sound itself. This thing literally behave like a desktop DAC amp, and I am not talking about entry-level desktop DAC amp, okay? This thing even compete easily with my 3000 milliwatt Burson Audio Playmate 2 in desktop mode. As a digital audio player, features matters a lot. So let's just take a closer look at these two, okay? And I'm just gonna simply say both are pretty much identical, especially if you click the audio settings, you're gonna find that all of them are pretty much very similar, with an exception that the filter, and these two offer very effective filter. For starters, how many filter do you get on this? Four type of filter. And you want to know how many you get from this E203? 7 filters. And all 7 filters are very effective. And if you like to EQ, both of them also offer EQ, which is basically high B parametric equalizer. If you're familiar with high B parametric equalizer, especially if you enable it here, then you're gonna get similar interface, okay? And both of them are very effective. If you're familiar with high B, you can still use MSEB provided that you use high B music app, which is also already included in this player. Having class A in a digital audio player, I can just simply say that after testing these two side by side, comparing the temperature, running it on driving some of the most difficult headphone which I have in my hand, 4.4 mm balance, definitely E203 runs hotter, a lot hotter than this C201, because Cyrus Logic has been known to be quite efficient when it comes to power. But this one running in class A, hyper mode, almost as close as 40C. Yes, you read me correct, 40C. You can feel the heat if you put it into your pocket. In general, I think both me and Ben agree, in the longer run, when it comes to, let's say, overall sound satisfaction as a listener, as a user, I think both of us agree that E203 is the one that we like the most. Do you agree?
It sounds more natural. It sounds more natural. I think more organic than the Cyrus Logic. So I do prefer that. It's not a huge difference. It's not night and day, but if I were to reach for one of them, I'd probably reach for the
203.
Yeah, E203.
Yeah. But in return, you're gonna sacrifice one thing, which is line out. You would notice here, E203 only have these two port, which is phone out 4.4mm balance and this phone out 3.5mm single-ended. Where on this C201, you have extra one here, which is line out, dedicated line out. With everything considered, I think the biggest appeal of this N6 Mark III is that just like the N6 Mark II, is that you can totally swap the module, which means that for the price that you're paying, which is not cheap by the way, $1,300 you can literally change the DAC and the amp, where with something more expensive like this DX340, you can only change the amplifier. Okay, and there's not many digital audio player in the market nowadays that offer the kind of flexibility that this Cayin N6 Mark III offer. If you like what you're hearing, what you're seeing, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, and also please take a moment to click like here. It will really help me out. It is free by the way. And also please follow me on Instagram, which I have set up very recently. My Instagram will be a platform for me to provide quick updates on the things that I do beyond this video. And again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.